5 years in development hell. Well, it was actually a lot more than 5 years. If you're a game developer, you know what it's like to have a dream game. Something with such overwhelming scope, it seems impossible to finish on your own. But regardless of that, you keep working on it. This video is going to be a little bit different from my usual devlogs. I'm going to be taking a look at the journey so far in my game Sundercore, where I went wrong, and what game development is really like for someone who has no idea what they're doing. So get a bagel, sit down and get comfy as I take you through the journey of my game, Sundercore. A bit of context first. I've been obsessed with this genre of game ever since I can remember, but more specifically, this genre. I'd always had an interest in game development ever since I was young, from trying and failing to learn Unity when I was 10 years old, to, well, finishing a degree in computer science earlier this year. So, over the years, this roguelike project I've always dreamed of making has seen a lot of different iterations to get to where it is today. So I've tried to put, as best I can, all the old footage, concept art and project files into some kind of chronological order for the video. And for people that have been with the channel a while, there's a lot of stuff that I've never shown anybody, so if that doesn't deserve a like on this video, I don't know what does.
3, 2, 1, go!
We're starting off strong here, so believe it or not, this is the original project. If I had to guess, I'd put the development for this somewhere around here. So this is the earliest iteration of the game I could find. I believe the Gamemaker 1 project file was called Dungeon Crawler. There really was no premise to the game initially. I think I just came up with some food characters and then just ran with it. The gameplay was very simple and there wasn't any random generation. I actually didn't know how to program that kind of stuff back then. So there was essentially just one set layout for the map that you battle through. Enemies had invisible spawn zones that would activate when you got close to them. So this would basically lead all enemies to spawn on top of the player, and all you'd get was this little warning beforehand. Like, what was I thinking? I think one thing that's going to be really interesting to see is how many features that are in these early versions of the game that are still planned to be implemented in the current version. You know, see how much stuff survived through the years. As undeveloped as this was, it's probably still the farthest along development compared to every other version of the game. I mean, I had the first 3 levels figured out and showcased in devlog videos, which are long gone on the channel. That's more levels than I currently have for Sundercore right now. There were like 20 passive items and 5 different active items, 2 different shopkeepers. Who made this game? Nonetheless, I learned a lot from this project, and it's the foundation used for the next project, Gastric Gauntlet. Okay, we're going to be taking a look at Gastric Gauntlet, and we actually have a build of the game to play this time. Oh my god, what have I done? So this version is actually built off the previous. There's a few updates to it, the main one being the visuals and the player characters changed. First impressions, the game feels very slow and the rooms are way too cramped. Ah yes, the Shrine of Sir Rebith. I remember this because it grants you a companion. And this is... no way, this is actually the puzzle room that you have to bring Sir Creemith to. There's like 3 different puzzle rooms you can get. This one actually spawns Sir Creemith around the map and you have to transport him to this room and he plays the piano. There he is! There he is! And then it unlocks the potion room. I'm starting to see why I decided to add some kind of dodge mechanic. Without one, especially in these small rooms, it's tough to make the combat feel engaging. Like the dodging really doesn't have a lot of depth to it. This next section, we're going to be taking a look at some old concept art and a smaller project. So apparently this was a direction I was going to go with the game at some point. I believe this was kind of based on Fallout, in that you're in a fallout shelter underground, and all the bugs have mutated, and you yourself have mutated from a human into this brain thing. This was actually where I started playing around with the idea of there being a hub area in the level. So there would essentially be multiple paths that connect back to the hub area and then to the boss room. I probably only spent a few days making this, but I still think it's worth mentioning. There was also a brief period where the game might have been made in 3D. This was some concept art I made for that idea back then, but thankfully I never followed up on it because I don't think I would have gotten very far. And a quick mention here of some concept art I did before the next iteration. This is what the main character was changed to, and there was this very distinct style with the UI. This was a concept for the casino boss, as well as some other unused concepts for level 3. And this is where we pick back up with a more recent iteration, Sundercore. The first version of Sergeant Griggs makes an appearance, except this time with a dash, a really buggy dash. This is where the game really started to change direction. The first level gained more of a medieval castle theme, and the second level changed from an ancient tomb to a casino, with the third level unfinished but planned to be a swamp. Without a doubt, the worst thing about this version was the limited ammo capacity. These purple orbs were ammo drops from enemies, and to conserve ammo, you were expected to dash into enemies to kill them. Because your dash wasn't just movement tech, it was a really overpowered close range attack. Maybe this designed to work as an alternate character class, but as the base for the player character, it wasn't very well thought out. The hub area idea made its way into this version as well, with 3 paths connected to each main hub, with the boss door planning to be in the middle of the room, as a secret hidden trapdoor. The level structure changed a few more times, with the hub now containing 2 randomly generated level maps, instead of the 3 room paths. The game's shopkeepers, Paradot Bros, were added to the hub. Each hub level was supposed to house a random selection of NPCs each run, Paradot Bros being the only constant ones. I think this version of the hub structure was probably the best, but eventually I moved on from it, and back to a single randomly generated map for the level. The art style changed again with the reintroduction of a thick outline on the characters for clarity. The UI changed again, and a few more times after that, and the game's visual style was really becoming more defined. Jello King finally makes its reappearance with updated visuals, animation, and attack patterns. And with this also comes the first iteration of the jetpack, the unique dodge mechanic for the game. The dash and limited ammo supply was gone. In this build that I have here, using the jetpack gives the player a blue outline, which although provides clarity, looks awful. The game is starting to resemble the current day version, but one thing that's gotta go is these rooms. This is where I really started to move away from the food theme. There were goblin type enemies from the very beginning, but this is where they started becoming a bigger part of the game, where the story started changing into what it is today. The first level now took place in a bandit and jello infested forest, essentially pushing the castle and casino into later levels. The game was changing, maturing, and I was starting to figure out what I really wanted to make. The rooms in this version were randomly generated in both shape and enemy placement. I thought if I made a good enough level generator, I wouldn't have to waste hours creating room layouts. But these rooms lacked structure and personality. If you've played Enter the Gungeon or Binding of Isaac a lot, you know the types of layouts that are going to show up, but that doesn't make the game feel any less replayable. There's fun and skill involved in learning the quirks in these layouts. It's part of the game, so I eventually shifted my focus to making tools that would let me make room layouts faster. At the same time, the item rarity system was taking shape with these purple orbs, now planned to be the currency that upgraded items. The game was getting some new features, like an inventory system, and I was starting to think of building stronger foundations rather than diving into creating the fun game content. But the problem was that this version was still built off of the old version, and still had the same unstable foundations. And this is right around where I started my final year of college, and I knew working on the game was going to be a huge distraction. So I said I'd take a year off, no game development. And about 8 months in, I started working again. Only this time it was something new. I was starting from scratch, rethinking and redesigning the game before I did any programming. This time I knew what I was doing. I knew what features the game was going to have. I knew I had to build certain systems with longevity in mind. But nonetheless, like a phoenix from the ashes, Sundercore was reborn. I can honestly say this is without a doubt the best iteration of the game. The story tells of a ragtag team of space adventurers pulling a heist on a military ship, looking to retrieve the Sundercore, a unique artifact powerful enough to fracture the timelines and rip the universe apart. Things don't go your way. You and the military vessel end up crash landing into a nearby planet. Your only objective is to retrieve the Sundercore and keep it from falling into the wrong hands. The first level takes place in the Magenta Backwoods, a no man's land filled with bandits and other foes, all looking to kill you and steal your gear. Level 2, you'll take the cargo ship across the river. You'll have to survive while waves of enemies board the vessel. Just keep an eye on your port and starboard sides for other ships or platforms that might float by with items or loot. You'll be on your own now in Level 3, Voltro City, home to some of the worst people in the galaxy. This sprawling city won't be easy to navigate, with armed thugs and guards in almost every district. Might as well stop into some stores while you're here. Merchants of all kinds regularly set up shop. Found yourself in Level 4? Only the wealthiest and most powerful people live in Utopia. A hard contrast from the streets of Voltro City, this pristine living district is heavily guarded by the city's highest defenses. At the edge of Utopia lies the crash site, the final level, Cataclysm. The Sundercore has crashed into the planet, warping reality around it. It's unknown what challenges lie ahead, only that they'll be the hardest to overcome. I've done a lot of work these past few years, and sometimes I feel like I'm not making any progress. But then I go back and I look at these earlier versions of the game, and I remember that I've built up so many skills doing this that it really wasn't development hell. It was entirely necessary to get me where I am today, and that working on these projects led to an overall better product. A product that I plan on finishing and publishing as a commercial game. And although it's still in its early stages of development, it's shaping up to be something I'm going to be proud of. So strap in, we got a long journey ahead of us. There's a lot of work to do. But that's for future development and future videos, and I'll see you in the next one.